Here on the top of the Red Rocks here in Sedona with Drúnvalo and members of the 13 Moon Walk for Peace. How are you this morning?
I'm good. We're not in yet. I don't know. My dad fell off the line, so I'm kind of...
All right, well, if...
doing this thing, so I'm just kind of here like, hey.
Well, let's remember that we are online, and so thank you, Makua, for holding the energy of the call, and as we get through the technical aspect of things, I know all is well. In the meantime, I suppose we can start broadcasting. Are we in that space?
Yeah, actually, right now we're not on live. I have you on screen.
Okay. Can you put us on live, and we'll roll with it?
Okay, here we go.
Good afternoon and welcome to Peace Talks on Life Conversations Radio. We are here in Sedona, Arizona with Drúnvalo and the 13 Moon Walk for Peace. Those of you who have been following us know that we're making our way across the country. Our intention is to awaken the heart of America, and we do that by awakening our heart and growing more and more into what it means to be in that inner verse of the heart and to expand that out to the world around us. And so that in that space, all we have to do is be mindful of the fact that our responsibility is just simply to show up. And so we certainly have shown up today, Drúnvalo, and it is an honor to be here with you. I just would like to begin by saying thank you to Mother Earth and all the beings of this dimension and all the dimensions that make up what we call life. Just give thanks for bringing us here.
Thank you, Audri, and it's an honor for me to be here with you too. And I just want to say that my prayer is that what happens today is a blessing in the lives of everyone that hears this, and for all life everywhere. And thank you.
Thank you. You know, this is a continuation of a conversation we've been having. Drúnvalo ran up the mountain in about 3 seconds, and it took the rest of us about 30 minutes to get here. But I wish I could visually show you where we are. It's an amazing space. So it provided the expansion of and union of all of our thoughts as we began to have a conversation. And the one that really touched me, or one aspect of our conversation that I wanted to just go right to, is the whole conversation around the plasma beings, particularly in relationship to the time that we're in, Drúnvalo. Can we talk about that?
Yes, of course. What is it that you are interested in?
The part that I'm interested in is how we tend to think of ourselves often in this dimension, very focused on the self. And those of us that gain a little bit, then we continue to, that radiance goes out more and more, and the more enlightened we become, the more we realize that our self is just everything. There is no separation. But at a time that we're in on the world, where there are many, many things that must change, I would say change for our survival, change for the upliftment of Mother Earth and humanity in that sense, there are those beings, not just of this dimension, but multiple dimensions, who are trying to show up now to teach us and to help us. Not necessarily, they can't do our work, but they're certainly here to awaken us even further.
It's true. It's not just from inside the Earth, it's outside the Earth too. Extraterrestrials, they've been here for a long time. And I know that most people are not truly aware of their existence. We've been hearing about them, we've been seeing their ships, we've been, all these kinds of things. But the times are changing now where some of these very benevolent beings have decided to begin to make their move and to begin to make themselves aware, make us aware of them. And their intentions are absolutely pure. Most of the most of our experience with ETs and other forms of life have, in the past, have not been real good. This was with the Greys and the reptiles and these kind of people who abducted us and did kinds of experiments with us and everything. Those days are gone. And now it is the other beings that really do love us and care about us. These people are now beginning to make themselves known around the world. And there is this particular one, which the Mexicans call the plasma beings, because that's where they first appeared on Earth. And my experience with them is extended from about 1996 until the present. And it's only until just recently that I've had direct connection with them. And they really do care about us, and they really do want to help us. And so if that is your interest, I will do my best to try to tell you what they have to say.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of history, my history on this. In 1996, I had Mexican friends coming over the border with footage of film and photographs of their ships coming out of a volcano south of Mexico City. And these people were actually on the rim of the volcano watching these ships coming out of solid rock. And these ships they look like they're made out of light. They're not solid like we would normally think. And they have an orange color. They look kind of like lava. And they glow. They brightly glow in the dark. And so I had 6 different people showing me these photographs and pictures, and they were people I trusted, and they said, you know, what is going on? They're coming in and out of this volcano about every hour or two, and then moving around the countryside in Mexico. Well, I wanted to go down there immediately. I said, I got all excited, and I said, well, I want to go see them too, you know, and so I got a filming crew all ready to go, and I started to go, and then my inner guidance told me, no, you can't go now. Now is not the right time for you to do this, and it was hard for me to say no. And then the film kept coming from Mexico, and I had footage of their ships landing and them getting out and walking around on ground and the kinds of things that they were doing. I saw in these footage where they would get out of their ships and the ship would get smaller. And another person would come out and the ship would get littler. And then they would walk around, and I watched in one of the films where they walked right through each other. And I went, whoa, I've never seen anybody do that before. And then they got back in the ship, and the ship got bigger. And then it went up into the air and broke into 2 identical ships and went in different directions. And I go, hey, this is something I have never seen before. And I became, it's a long, long story, but I became friends with a person, Carlos Diaz was his name, and he was one of the first people to ever see them. Actually, he actually has been on board these ships, and on one day when he was on one of the ships, they told him to come to me. And he had never heard of me, he didn't know who I was, and that he was to give me a lot of his footage and film and everything. And so he had to find out who I was, and went through a whole thing and finally discovered, and then went through my organization and made and asked me to come to Mexico City. And so I did. I flew down to Mexico City and had a meeting with him, and that's when he began to fill in a lot of their history and understanding, which I didn't understand at that time. Then he wanted me to, he said that they said that I could go on board the ship also. Well, yes, I'm going to go on board if they want me to go. And so I said yes, and he says, okay. He gave me an exact date. It was about 2 months in the future at a certain time. He said, you come back here, and it was down to the minute, actually, and they will come out of the ground, and you can go on board the ship. And he said, I can also bring 100 people with me if I wanted, and I could film it. And, you know, and I said, well, okay. And so I went back, and I was friends with Marty Hornstein and the people who made the Star Trek movies, and he got me in connection with, what's his, I forgot his name, the guy with the band in Star Trek around his eyes. I forgot. He has Eagle Nation Films, which is in connection with Paramount.
Jordy.
Yeah. Anyway, I told him about this, and he got all excited too. And he says, "Okay, we'll film it. We'll film it." And so we were all ready to go. And then the Pope John Paul, invited Carlos Diaz to come to the Vatican because he wanted to talk to him about the plasma beams. And I go, okay, so he went over there and talked to the Pope about all of this. And the Pope is evidently really believes in extraterrestrial life forms and how they're going to interconnect with us at this time. And he's actually talked about this publicly, though it didn't go out very far. And he even said that he was going to prove it, and he started to make an observatory, which he started building here in Arizona, of all places. And then he died before he was ever able to complete this project. Well, anyway, when Carlos Diaz was with the Pope, the dark side stepped in, and they went to his house in these, all dressed in black with machine guns, and they took part of his family. They kidnapped part of his family. And so when he got back, they told him that if he continued with me, that they were going to kill his family and him and everything else. And it's the same old stuff. But it did create fear in him, and he wouldn't connect with us anymore for a very long time. And I honored that. I just let it go. And then years went by, and about a year ago, the plasma beings told him to reconnect with me. And so we have reconnected, and whatever that force was is no longer trying to stop him. There's it just isn't happening anymore. And we are in the middle of doing something for the world that, if it happens, every single last person on Earth is going to know. So hopefully it will happen. We don't know. I can't tell you what it is yet.
All right, so you're going to just leave us hanging on that.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
But I want to ask, why? Why now?
Why now?
Yeah.
Well, from my view on this, it's because of the cycles, the same understanding that the Mayans have and the Hopi have. The cycles of time, which are connected to different movements of the Earth and within the Earth, and the Sun and the Moon, and specifically Jupiter and Saturn, and all the planets, this solar system. These cycles are coming to an end and a new beginning, which happens on December 21st, 2012. We've all heard this now. And we are so close in these cycles. According to the Mayans, there is a window of time around this date. The events that the Mayans speak about are not just happen on that day. In fact, they have declared that it probably won't happen on that day, but it's going to happen sometime in the window. The window began on October 24th, 2007, and that was the Hopi prophecy of the blue star. And even though it never was announced to the world, you can go through scientific levels and discover the truth of what I'm saying. There was a comet that came into our solar system called Comet Holmes, and that comet exploded and became a huge blue sphere in the sky, and rapidly, within a few days, became larger than the sun. It's now reported as the largest object ever seen inside our solar system. It was a giant blue sphere. It was bigger than the sun, bigger than the moon visually when you'd see it. And yet nobody talked about it. But the indigenous people all over the world knew what it was, and they knew exactly what this meant. And this was the beginning of the time when the whole world was going to change from darkness into light, from the brain into the heart, from a whole new way of being with each other and being with life and being with the world. And it happened. And so now we are inside this window. The window ends sometime in the end, according to the Mayans, in the end, very, very end period time of November, December of 2015. And then there is the red star prophecy that will come. And that prophecy, probably from science, will probably come from one of the 4 stars, Betelgeuse, in Orion Nebula, because it's imploding right now, and will probably become a supernova very soon, and we're going to feel it. We're going to actually feel this impact because it's so close to us, and it's going to be a huge red star that's going to appear in the sky.
When I was with Baba Credo Mutwa in South Africa, and he was talking about the red star Malumitsi that would show up in 2015 and be the sign of the change, you know, so it's very interesting now. Here I am on the other side of the world, and we're having the same conversation.
Well, Credo is a very close person in my heart. I love him, and I really respect who he is and what he's been doing for the world. And he is also deeply into what the ETs are doing, both in positive and negative moves in the world. They land there, right, and for the Zulu. They're there all the time. It's not something that for us. It's about a weekly experience, according to him. And
yeah, we were in the same time I was there with him. We went out one day into the area where the caves are, and I can't remember the name right now, where the Miss Players was found, I think, of being about 3 million years old. And we were walking back from the caves, and we were in this space, and all of a sudden it seemed like a friend of mine, Apila Colorado from Hawaii, who started the Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, we were walking down this hill, and all of a sudden everything out in front of us turned green, and I turned and looked at her, and her eyes were so green. And in this flash, I mean, it was so intense, it's a wonder we didn't fall out. I mean, we both got wobbly and dizzy. But you could see that there was some whole other dimension, like layered over where we were and what we were witnessing, and it was the most incredible experience, one of them that I think I've had in my lifetime.
well, all over the world there are caves with very high-level beings that are in them, and they some of them are human and some of them are not human, and but these places are protected dimensionally. There's nothing we could do in our levels to interrupt what is about to occur, and this is a blessing beyond anything we can almost imagine right now of what this is going to mean for us, because we're coming to a time when at the end of this cycle, when very negative things will appear externally and probably create a great deal of fear, but at the same time there's going to be our brothers and sisters from everywhere that are going to protect us during this time and allow us to make the kinds of changes that we have to make within ourselves. Nobody can do it for us. I mean, we have to do it ourselves. And we're going to remember, because when we see them and we see what's going on, this is embedded in our consciousness.
That's right.
When we see this happening, we're going to go, oh, I remember, I know. And then we're going to go, and then the memory that is going to start flooding through us, and we're going to know who we are, because we're far more than just a human being. We are way more than that. We are a master on levels that right now we don't remember, but we will know exactly how to breathe, how to bring everything together within ourselves, how to reconnect with the outer reality, which is within us, not external to us. And many things that right now it seems hopeless, but it is not hopeless. It is perfect. We are moving exactly the way we are supposed to move, and there is nothing wrong, even though it seems on a human level very bad. We have not been forgotten. And we have taken a detour that we all volunteered for. And we knew this detour was going to be difficult and hard. But the end result is that what happens through all of this is not only for all of humanity and for Mother Earth and Father Sun and the solar system, it's for all life everywhere. And this is a very, very important moment in the history of the universe.
You're listening to Peace Talks on Life Conversations Radio with Audri Scott Williams. I'm here in Sedona with Drúnvalo and members of the 13 Moon Walk for Peace. And we're having an incredible conversation with Drúnvalo, and we're very grateful that he's taken this time to be with us. I wanted to shift the conversation, although it's not really a shift, but I wanted to go into the heart. You know, we think of the heart as this organ that keeps us alive, and certainly it's that. But it's a lot more than that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Actually, every organ and every gland in the body has a relationship to human consciousness and creates the chakra system and the meridians that run through the body. But there are certain ones that are more important than others. Right now, in where we are now in this very dark place, we think that intelligence is the greatest thing, and that the mind and the brain is what is really important. We also think we're the most important thing that's ever lived and the most evolved thing that's ever been on Earth, which just isn't true either. But yeah, I would like to talk about this for a moment because it's important in our memory. I'll go back to, first of all, I'm going to make a statement, and that statement is that the brain is more intelligent, smarter, has a greater wisdom, and is older and is more primal than the brain.
The heart is.
The heart is. In ancient times, for example, in Egypt, when they mummified a body, they would take all the organs out of the body, and except for 3, and they would put them in these 4 clay vases, and they would be buried with the person. But the brain, the heart, was taken out, and it was the most important, and it was placed back in the body, and so were the genitals placed back in the body. Those 2 things, the sexual energy and the heart. But what did they do with the brain? They took it out of the body through the nose. They actually sucked it out through the brain into there, and they threw it in the garbage can. They felt it was an absolutely useless organ. And yet we have placed complete dependence upon it right now. Such a difference of opinion in just 5,000 or 6,000 years. Let's go to the heart for a moment, and we'll go to science and what they now know. If you go into some of my books, like the Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, in there we show that the life begins as a sphere, which is the ovum, and then it divides into 2 through mitosis, and then it divides into 4, and when it does, it forms a tetrahedron, which is one of the sacred forms. And then it goes from 4 to 8, and it forms a star tetrahedron, another one, which is actually also a cube. And then it continues to move until it reaches 512 cells, and where it becomes what is called a toroidal field, one of the most sacred forms of all, and it's hollow inside. And this ultimately becomes our body. And it continues to move, this toroidal field, and what it actually becomes is the human heart. And so there is a place that we all went through when we were in our mommy's womb, where we were a human heart and nothing else. We didn't have a brain. We didn't have arms and legs. We didn't have anything. We were just a heart, and it began to beat. Science could never understand how the heart could beat when there was no intelligence. But it was HeartMath in Stanford who discovered that there's actually a brain inside the heart. It's small. It's made of only 40,000 cells, but it's made of brain cells, not heart cells. And so the heart has its own intelligence that allows it to begin life without anything else. And then there's a stage where the human body comes out of the heart. It emerges out of it. And we have our brain and our arms and our legs and everything else. And then the heart is pulled into the body, just like the Egyptians did thousands of years ago, and was brought back into the body. And we began our life in what we normally think is true. But from this image, you can see that the heart is more primal than the brain and more important, because it was the first stage of development that we all went through. Now to go into another level, in the Bible and in other holy books in the world, they recognize that there was a time of the Great Flood and the fall of humanity from a time when we were much different than we are now. And in a lot of the books, it's written about as dimensional drops, that we fell from higher dimensions down into this lower dimension here. There's different ways of looking at it, but the simplest way was all we did was we moved from our heart to our brain, and that was what the fall was. We just moved a few inches away, and from there, for the last 13,000 years, we've been living in our brain, and we've forgotten about our heart. We don't remember it. And that is what an ascension that so many people are talking about now, that's all ascension is moving back from dropping the brain, leaving it completely 100%, and moving back into the heart. And living there, actually seeing through our eyes from the heart, not from the brain. You can do this. We have done it before, and we can do it now. We know exactly how to do it, and so do you. It's just it's a memory, and it will come back at the right moment. And so the heart has a sacred place inside of it that's recorded in many of the ancient books of the world, and it's called the sacred place of the heart, and it's in two parts. There's an inner part and an outer part. And the outer part is when you enter in there, it is the stillest place in existence, and there is no movement. It's like being in the center of the hurricane. There's this movement all around us, but there it is absolutely still. And then there's this tiny place that's inside of there, this little tiny place. It's usually, for me, it's only 6 or 7 feet around. It's very small. But it's also talked about as the tiny place of the heart in the ancient writings. And when you step into that place, the vibration moves upward, and this is the place where all of the universes that we know were created, and including the one of the stars and the planets that we are in now. And it literally took form and shape there. And then we have now mapped it. We have been given the whole mapping, all the way from once the image is created, exactly how it gets out into the world around the outside of our bodies, and how it becomes what appears to be an external world. It is not an external world. It is an internal world. And this is going to be, at first, a shock to some of us, and then when the memory comes in, we'll remember that this was how it has always been. And there's so much. It's so much to give. I could only give you little bits and pieces of it all. But the way to connect back to the original source of all life everywhere, there is a pathway. There are many pathways, but there is one pathway that has been used over and over and over by many people in this world. It was used by the Great White Brotherhood. It was used by the Hindus. It was used by the Tibetans. It's used by people even in Colombia, and the Arhuacos and the Kogis, and it was also used by the Zulu, and still is. And there's a way that you can use the tip of your tongue to rub it on the roof of your mouth, and when you are inside of your heart space, that reconnects to the thalamus glands. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of this. And when you reconnect to the thalamus gland in this way, the alpha waves begin to fire in the 4 quadrants of your brain in very high levels, and they go into a balance. And when they do, the pineal gland, which is an eyeball, which is hollow and has color receptors in it and has a lens on top of it. This is scientifically fact. It is the third eye. that eye rotates into the direction of where the third eye opening is on the head, and we reconnect with another gland, which is the pituitary gland, which is the chakra itself, which is sitting in that place. And a green light appears inside of our inner vision, and that green light turns into a spiral that connects with that other chakra. And when it does, this energy hits you. It's amazing. And then there's another chakra out in space, out in front of you, which is linked to another gland inside of your brain. And at that moment, when that happens, your head glows, and a halo appears around your head, which science has now photographed and is recorded. And these 8 beams of light that look like cylinders come out of your head and connect to this sphere. And at that moment, your third eye is wide open. And the final step is that you begin to see from your heart, not your brain, not using psychic energy, which is what usually people have been doing, but you see from your heart, and you can now see from a new sense the world that we are so familiar with, and you begin to see all the energies that are all around trees, and these lines of energies that look like roots that are moving between people, and all the communications are opened on all levels, not only between people, but between everyone. We are one living being, one life form, and we are forgotten. We are just cells in a larger body, and what that will become, we will remember this, we will know this beyond any doubt, and this is going to happen any minute now.
You know, traveling with elders, having the privilege of traveling with elders of long lineages of traditional wisdom around the world, taking them to meet one another. One of the things that, there are 2 questions, or 2 things they would always say. One was a question, and that was, who are you?
Yes.
And the second was, you must remember.
Yes.
And so it was interesting because they take us to a place of that, I call it inner verse, or where they function from the space of we know it all, we just have to remember.
Yeah.
Versus our system of education is that we don't know anything and we have to study in order to find it. And it's quite a paradox, but the longer I've been on the path, the more truth I find in that.
Yeah, we know everything. Actually, we have the entire Akashic records of every event and every word that has ever been said or ever will be said is all recorded within this tiny space in our heart and the outer space around that heart. And we know everything. There isn't anything that we don't know. But it's true. It's memory. And our memory was severed when we fell, mostly. But it was never really severed. It was just an illusion. And it's still there perfectly intact in every single one of you. And no person, no living thing, not only human, but no living thing in existence is going to be left out of this movement that is about to take place here. I'm going to say something now that normally would seem kind of impossible, but I'm going to say this to you, and I mean you as an individual, not as the audience, but you as an individual. And but I mean it exactly in that way, though it's a paradox right now, but when you remember, it won't be a paradox. But this entire universe of all the stars and planets and all the galaxies and all the various dimensional levels and parallel worlds and everything that has been created that is out here right now was created solely and only for you. You are the center of all life everywhere. How can that be? It's hard to understand because we live in polarity, and we see everything as good or bad, or black or white, or up or down, and we can't see the unity of everything. In truth, there is only one spirit, and there is only one universe and one life, and that one spirit moves through everyone and everything, and that's who we are. And so when I say that, I'm talking about not your human personality, I'm talking about who you really are. And that is that what you are, the one spirit, which we call God. and the source of all life everywhere. And now when you say that, and when you see it from that point of view, this whole universe was created only for you.
Ashe. I remember Baba Credo Mufa, one of the other things he said is that, I wanted to end on this and then open up for questions. He said that when we go through this shift, that the people of the stars will return, and when they do, they'll find us worthy.
Yes. Yeah. They are here now. I mean, the lower levels are here now. I mean, it's only the people that ride around in ships are the lower levels. The higher levels don't have to be here. They are here. They are the rocks. They are the trees. They are everything.
Absolutely. Why don't we, if anyone has a question, you can come down and we can ask questions, and I'll take a moment and say you've been listening to Peace Talks on Life Conversations Radio. You can also raise your hand and I'll come over to you, and McClure, if there's anyone in studio that has a question, this would be a time to ask that. So I'm going to come over here. Karen?
I'd like to know what was the purpose of the other beings being raised and all of them coming in the beginning, and now they're not here anymore because the plasmas, those that are here to help us here.
Well, the Greys originally came here because we, as a human race, were doing something that broke the laws. It extends all the way back into Atlantis. We were doing something there that was wrong. And also in modern times when we blew up the atomic bomb, that is also illegal through everywhere. You can use, you can have fusion, but you can't use fission. You can't split everything apart because everything is interrelated. And so when we blew up the atomic bomb, we actually destroyed about 100 of their planets. And so they were upset. And they came here to solve this problem. And they originally decided that the way they were going to solve this problem was just eliminate us. And they tried. And it didn't work because of the ascended masters who were able to do something that they didn't know we were capable of. And then it was during that time that they began to realize something that I haven't talked about, and that is there's a huge, there's another cycle that is ending during these other cycles. The Mayans and Hopi don't know about this. That is as big as it can get. It's the cycle of the creation of this universe. This universe is going to end in this cycle, and we're going to move into another one, a completely different, it's another octave of universes at another level. And so they came here. They had the right to come here because we have gray blood in us from another intrusion that came in about 65, 70,000 years ago. And so they had the legal right to come in here and to work with us. But then when they found out about the cycle and they knew that they had to change, they had a problem because they are a race that has eliminated the female aspect, the emotional part of themselves, out of them. And so they couldn't make a living Merkaba field or a human light body that is necessary. And so they used us, and they abducted about 5.5 million people and brought them aboard their ships and did experiments. And that was also what they were doing with the cattle mutilation that we were known. That was not mutilation, that was high-level laser technology. And so they took our emotional body and their mind and their memories and their wisdom, and they embedded it into a third race that is now still is now functioning. And then they left the Earth and went back. They went to Mars actually, and they're there to finish up what they have to do. So they're not here anymore. However, it's not over. Who is behind them are the reptiles. And that is a much larger body of people. extending back for millions and millions and millions of years. And they have been trying to take over this race for a long time. And this is nothing new. And it's even if you go back into Hermes during the time of Greece and the books that he wrote there, he talks about how they always keep coming back at exactly this time when the precession of the equinoxes hits this moment, because we're very weak now, and they always come in to get us, and we always win. And the war right now between them is ending as we speak right now. It's almost over. It's just about over. What you're seeing happening in Egypt right now is part of that, and the effects of the internet, how it's linking all of us together on a mental level, and next will be the heart level, and so we had to go through that because we had to go through it. But while that was all going on, there were all these other beings that love us and really care, and we're just simply watching. And it is those people that we're going to get to know very soon. The Hopi talk about them. I mean, the Mayans talk about them, how we're going to very soon be able to be anywhere in the universe. And this seems like, well, how can we do this? Well, science is actually right now figuring out how this is possible. And Stephen Hawking is one of the first people in the world that is beginning to realize that a human being can actually travel anywhere in the universe instantaneously. And so there's a lot going on. And I know we don't know it, but we are going to know it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, you're listening to Peace Talks on Life Conversations Radio with Audrey Scott Williams, 13 Moon Walk for Peace members, and wow, and Drúnvalo. Thank you. Mary, you have a question.
Drúnvalo, your message and the feeling I get from you is so positive and so loving, so thank you so much. One of the things that Audrey always says is all we have to do is just show up, and that we will be used as an instrument to be truly helpful, to do and say the right thing at the time. You don't have to know it, just trust it. So can you talk to us when you say that this event is about to occur, this shift in consciousness, this global spiritual awakening? Is it something that will just happen effortlessly and naturally, or do we have to actually do something to bring it about?
I don't know. I mean, the beings were there, and exactly how it unfolds, I mean, there may be violence involved in this. I don't know. Probably Egypt is probably a pretty good precursor. We're going to see how they do it. Will the military turn over to the heart of the people, or will they stand behind? Pretty much that's what it comes down to, I think. Will they stand behind the single guy that has no power at all of his own? And so we'll see. But this is something that could continue throughout the whole world. But it's only the very, very first initial stages of what we're talking about here. There are levels behind this that are almost hard to discuss because they are outside of what we think is even possible. But for an individual, it's really easy. You don't have to do anything really. You don't have to know any special meditation. You don't have to know the right people. You don't have to dig a hole in the ground and put food and a bunch of guns and stuff in there. You don't have to protect yourself at all. And this is what the indigenous people all over the world are telling me. The only thing we have to do is be in our hearts and love life, and specifically we have to love Mother Earth and Father Sun, because that is who we are on the next level up. And if our love is strong enough, if we just completely believe in the perfection of life and love God and love through Mother Earth and through nature and through the sun, it puts a vibration inside of us. It really does. It's a very specific vibration. And it's the same vibration that you will find inside of your heart when you go in there. And when anyone that has that vibration, she is going to make sure that you survive this, no matter what. You could be sitting on the edge of a volcano, and somehow you will survive, because it's her body. Yes. And so That's all it is. It's really easy. You can be anywhere. You can be absolutely poor. You can have no food. You can have nothing. You can be sitting in just with nothing, but you have your body, and your body has the heart in it. With all of your being, go into your heart. Leave your mind, forget it, and go into your heart, and everything will be fine. You will be perfectly. It'll be more than fine. It will be an extraordinary adventure for you.
You make Valentine's Day have a new meaning.
Baba?
Okay. What's the point of the human race then?
Well, it's a step. It could be a bug or a horse or a dog. We are evolving. We are going through different levels. There is a cosmic DNA that is unfolding, and that DNA is taking spirit through different levels of existence. And right now we are human. Very soon we are not going to be human. We're going to look human for a little bit, but then our body is going to begin to change. It's going to grow. It's going to do things that, when it's happening, it'll seem the right thing. But for us right now, if we were to see somebody doing this, it would probably be a little scary. Our body is a baby on another level, on the level that we are about to move into. That's the reason why the Egyptians had to do all their mummification and trying to get it over. That's why the Christians are into resurrection, to get our body over to the other level, because we have to do that. That's the only thing we need is our body, and our body has all the instructions and everything that's necessary. We get over there and we just grow like a little. We come here and we're a little tiny person. We're just 18 inches long or something, and we slowly start growing into an adult. We're going to do exactly the same thing on this other level, only this body's going to start changing. And females are going to get to be about 10 to 12 feet high, and males are going to get about 14 to 16 feet high. And we're going to have these giant heads, and we're going to be humanoid, but we're going to look different. And our race is one that was formed on the star Sirius. And that's where we actually came from. That's through the dolphins and the whales, believe it or not.
You know, one of the things the grandmothers say, Drúnvalo, they're my guides, and angels have been since my memory of them precedes being here. But one of the things they always say in a lot of their channels is that Earth is a favorite place amongst the universe. Why do you think they would say that? And that's why they say there's so much energy poured into the Earth, into us, to get it.
That would take a long time to explain. But inside the Earth, in the heart of the Earth, there is something that the plasma beings just brought me there just recently. I went down into one of their cities with 100 people with me, and we all had the same experience, very similar experience. And what they did is they said, okay, we're now going to take you into the very, very, very center of the Earth, because they knew that I was just like, that was the only thing I really wanted to know. And so we flew down. We were 266 miles inside the Earth in a giant geode, a crystal geode. And from there was like this whirling, like a vortex in the bottom. They brought me down in there, and they got inside of my Merkaba, my living field of energy. And so we went down to this place that was whirling, and then they said, okay, now we're going to go down inside there. And there were other people waiting, and they were going one after another, and I had to wait my turn is what it was. And so finally they said, okay, let's go. And so I went down in there, and it was going down like a tube. It was a very organic looking tube, and we were going down the tube. And as I was going down there, I had the funniest feeling that I was getting smaller and littler and littler and littler, and I was, but I didn't know it. I just had this feeling I was becoming almost nothing. And then the woman, there was one woman and one female that was with me, and she says, okay, here we go, we're going to come out. And so all of a sudden we came out of this tube, and I was in deep space. I was in the stars. And I wasn't just any stars, I could feel it. I was in the same universe that we were when we look off the surface of the Earth. And we were moving really fast. And I just kept looking. I looked back at where I came out of this whirling thing, but I moved away from it far, and it just looked like another star. And then we made this big U-turn. We just made this huge U-turn. They just wanted me to see what was in the center of the earth. And then we came back and went right back inside that tube, came back up to where it was, at which point there was one of these big orange glowing ships inside this geode, and they put all 100 of us in there, and we went back to the surface of the earth, which happens to be exactly where we're standing right now.
Wow. No wonder. You're listening to Drúnvalo on Peace Talks on Life Conversations Radio with Audrey Scott Williams, the 13 Moonwalkers for Peace, and the Master himself. As we started our program, I deviated from our normal flow. I didn't go into great introductions, and the reason is this. There's so much knowledge right now, and I'd like to transition from knowledge perhaps to wisdom. I find wisdom to be more heart-seated, and I wanted to, it's very rare that you have an opportunity to sit at the foot of a master and a master teacher such as Drúnvalo, and I wanted to get right into the teaching. But I do want to take a pause right here and invite you to go to www.drunvalo.net, where you can find out everything that you want to know about Drúnvalo's own journey to where he is. I could do a whole show, Drúnvalo, just on how you said, got out of the system, went up to Canada, lived totally on what you say is nothing, although I find that that was perhaps everything, because just connecting with the music and nature must have been what fed your soul and prepared you.
It still is the most fun time of my life, actually.
Yes, and
Yeah.
okay, and I also wanted to
But
go ahead.
But there's not a lot on that website, really.
It's a beginning. See, I think everybody has to. We need to only give folks the beginning, because
Yeah.
I think the journey is once you find your beginning. And what I did find on your website is once you started, it opened up a curiosity. And I think it'll do that for those, because then they have access to your books. And why don't I give you an opportunity to say, what would you want our listening audience to know about you? What is important to know about Drúnvalo?
Well, I don't think that I'm really that important. I mean, I'm just another person that Spirit is using I have given myself to Great Spirit, and I let Great Spirit move through me. And but as an individual, I'm not really that important. I'm just another person. We're all equal. Mm-hmm. Every person on earth is exactly, that's what I was trying to say, is Great Spirit, is exactly the same one. And so our individual people, it's just, we all have much to give to each other, to share with each other, and to love with each other, but no one is more valuable than another one. And that's true throughout the universe. There are people that are very, very, very evolved in all of this, but they know that they are no different than the lowest person on earth or anywhere else. I mean, it just doesn't, it is not important. And so all that is important is the message. And that's really the only thing that really matters.
Absolutely. I want to give anyone in our listening audience the number to call to ask a question. It's 347-426-3346, 347-426-3346. If you have a question that you would ask, this is a good time to call in. I'd like to thank our producers today who've been sending me messages that I haven't been as obedient answering. Sorry, Ade and Mukua. I'm so wrapped up in our conversation, and I think if you saw where we were between the this beautiful mantle here of Mother Earth and in the very spot that Drúnvalo talks about where the 100 people went into the inner earth, you would certainly understand that. But if it's anyone who wants to call in, this would be a good time to do that. Drúnvalo, is there another website that you would want to direct people to get more information about what you're doing and how they can access?
Well, there is one called the Spirit of Mott. It's Spirit of, and Mott is M-A-A-T, and .com. And on there is 4 years of free magazines, which is people that have written books all over the world about these kinds of subjects. And if you want to listen to what other people have to say, it's there. It's just free. It doesn't cost anything at all. And then I have another website which is called onelotus.com, and that one has to do with healing. And we have discovered some things about healing that healing's important, because if your body is giving you too many problems, it's hard to focus on meditation and going within. And so I recognized that a long time ago, and we have discovered some things that can truly change your physical body and help you. And other than that, I don't really have anything else.
Okay. As we are coming to the close of our time together, I wanted to give you an opportunity, if there's anything that you would have liked to have talked about and I didn't give you an opportunity, this would be that time.
Well, I don't know. What's about to happen to me is not, it's not a maybe. We are in the middle of it, and it is going to happen. And all I can say to you is just believe in yourself, trust in yourself. You are one with God. You always have been, and you always will be, and you will be fine through all this transition. Even if you were to die, it would not matter, because you would go into the fourth dimension in a very certain specific level that has already been prepared, and you would transition from there. Whether you survive this or don't survive this, either way, you don't have any worries. You really have to just believe and understand that you are one with all life everywhere. And no matter what you see happening externally, it is just the plan of God. And so you just have to relax, let go, and stay in your heart, and you will be fine through all of this.
Drúnvalo, I'd like to thank you. I check in just for a moment. If there are any phone calls or questions from our listening audience, are there a couple that we could hear now? Ade or Tony? Okay, I'm getting silence, so I'm thinking that perhaps not. So what I would like to do is to remind everyone that we are on air every Friday from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time on Peace Talks with Audrey Scott Williams on Life Conversations Radio. Stay tuned through our website. You can go to my personal site, www.audreyscottwilliams.com, and get an update on the shows that are coming up over the next few weeks. I'd also like to let our audience know that the annual reading from the grandmothers is now available, and you can find out how to access that information from audreyscottwilliams.com. Our show today has been a blessed gift. Mary, thank you for making this connection possible. Drúnvalo, thank you for knowing in your heart that this is perhaps a good thing to do, and being here with us. And I know that your opening prayer, that what we do here today will help all those who are listening in a profound way. I'm sure that that is happening in this very moment of us beginning to bring our show to a close. I am grateful for all of you that keep us moving forward on this walk. You can always go to the number 13 Moonwalk, the number 4 Peace.com, 13 Moonwalk for Peace, and find out what we're doing and how we're doing it and where we are. If we're in a community near you, we would love to hear from you. And so until next Friday, go in peace, love, and remember, always find your joy. Ashe.